Shalom, family, and blessings to you and yours. Thanks for coming back. It is Sunday evening, and I just finished watching the beautiful sisters, Queens of Boxing Talk, and somehow in that live towards the end, Eastern Euro fighters came up, and I, with a few exceptions, have chosen Israil Madrimov to beat them all. Nick has chosen Mr. Bakhram Murtazaliev. Now, this is all in fun. I love my sis. But, once I got my mind on something, I just gotta go with it. So, I'm gonna break down these two. So, I've said before that I feel like I've become jaded on watching this Eastern European style. And it's a little frustrating as well because it's like the American coaches over here are not studying how to beat that style. So these guys are coming out here and they're looking just spectacular. Just a quick little breakdown basically on, and I don't like to say the Russian style, the American, but the reality is it is a style and they consider it a style themselves. The Eastern European style is generally you're going to see an open hand stance, hands up in a high guard, but open and offset, elbows close to the body, and they're loose. They are taught to be loose. Their legs, you're going to see this karate stance, jump in, jump out, pretty wide stance. Also called a pendulum swing or a pendulum step. They can pivot out quickly, right? What they do is they push with their weight behind their whole body. It doesn't matter if they're throwing a jab or they're throwing the opposing or backhand, because the way that they're taught to stand, all their weight is constantly being thrown behind these punches. And I used to look at it and I would believe that it is arm punching, but it is not arm punching. They've found a way to get the maximum weight of their body behind their shots without having what we consider to be a proper form. Sitting down on a punch, twisting your hip. They put great importance on ring real estate. If you ever watch these guys, you'll see them circling, staying in the middle of the ring. It's really based off of the amateur style, in the fact that in the amateurs, you're not allowed to gain points from off the ropes. If you're coming off the ropes and punching, that's not going to be counted. It's very amateur as far as if you watch a Russian or Eastern European fighter in the amateurs to the pros. It just translates over. It's also heavy on the counters, very heavy on counter punching. They're schooled and working on the back foot, and they're taught that Americans don't learn this. This is why we constantly see them pushing and generally overwhelming more often than not, as well as keeping a lookout for openings. And what they're also taught is to keep distance. If you ever watch these guys, they're generally keeping fighters at a distance with their jab, with the overwhelming, with obviously the footwork. They will allow people to come in close, but there's a trick to that. You let them come in and you'll see them shell up on a high guard and covering their body kind of hunched over. They'll let you work. They're trying to tire people out, basically, for later on down in the line in the fight. Obviously that makes sense. They basically want you to punch yourself out so they can exploit it later. The last thing that I'll say is they're constant touchers. They're constantly trying to touch your body. I said a few seconds earlier, it's overwhelming, but they're constantly touching you. And even just to my eye, it just looks overwhelming. Now, I said I believe there is a way to obviously beat this style. I'm going to be a little more diligent in my film study, and I will make another video about that later. Israil Madrimov is 10-1 with 1 draw and 7 knockouts. Now, the first time that I saw Israil is when I saw him fight Bud. And that night, I called him a rhythm fighter. And I stand on that. Many of these guys have a rhythm to the way they are fighting. With him in particular, I see he has very good foot awareness. He works on his angles and his pivots, obviously using his feet very well defensively. He mostly exhibits the proper form from the waist down until he doesn't, but I'll get to that in a bit. He is a boxer puncher in my eyes with a good, straight, accurate shots. But in his loose style, he has semi-looping hooks and overhands. He's consistent in throwing body shots, and he's pretty consistent with the 1 and 2. He works combinations and levels simultaneously very well. He constantly is working in gut shots, but it is the singular stab jab to the gut, the kind that stops fighters in their tracks, that I like. Breaking fighters down, that's everything for me. Before, I spoke to his loose style, and you can see the change in his form and delivery when he gets, how I want to say, loose. This is when he neglects proper foot form, and you'll begin to see him throwing these flying, looping, overhands, hooks, flying straights. He literally turns into Superman. He's a wildling, y'all. The thing with me about Madrimov is he can fight in a style that is somewhat reminiscent of what we consider to be standard boxing, or the proper form of boxing, as well as the Eastern European style, and we don't see that often. He's also a switch hitter. And with that said, I feel like in the zeal of his wild and loose ass-kicking frenzy, he's careless. His main defense are his feet, backing on angles and pivoting out. Bakhram Murtazaliev is 23-0 with 17 knockouts. Bakhram is a great example of what I said about Eastern European boxers. With his own touch, as he is an individual, he has a very good jab and good accuracy. When opponents stand in front of him, a good 1-2, as well as body shots. Just a better overall selection when more combative opponents are in front of him. He's heavier on the 3 and the 4, and less body work then. He has very good power. He's more of a counter puncher than Israil is. His feet are so-so. He doesn't work the angles and pivots, and he doesn't do well on the back foot at all when he's pressed. His fight with Jack Kolkai proved this. He seems more comfortable pressing opponents. I would also say that he's more of a cleaner boxer in his style than Israil is as well. He's a boxer, but I would call him more of a puncher, seeing as how he's more comfortable pressing, not so good on the back foot, and circling out, pivoting out. So I definitely say his toughest fight was Jack Kolkai, and the toughest fight that I saw that Madrimov had was Bud, and I believe that fight was also hard on Bud as well. I didn't have much to say about Bakhram, as he's pretty straightforward, while Israil, on the other hand, seems to have a little bit more nuance to his game. You know, at the end of the day, it's a fight and anybody can win. Again, this is just my own personal breakdown. I'm still choosing Madrimov to whoop that ass. For what it's worth, I did choose Madrimov to beat the snot out of Virgil Ortiz, but I do see some holes. I will have to go and do some film study on Virgil to really come to a final conclusion. I thank you all for listening. Shout out to the sisters, the queens of boxing talk, the lovely ladies, Nick J and Boxiana. Shalom.